All right. Welcome, everybody. I hope you all had a happy holiday. Ours was really nice. It was nice to get a bit of a break. And with all the COVID stuff going on, we weren't as able to enjoy some interactions with family, but we just kind of hunkered down amongst ourselves and celebrated Christmas and New Year's. Want to give a quick update on the grid status and where we're at, plus the roadmap. We have some statistics I've just put together. Callie's going to share those, I believe, in SG Welcome. We've done a little bit of growing, small, not unexpected. It's a small number of additional regions added. We added a couple more water area regions to accommodate that. Um, we've had user growth, some new people coming in, which we're happy to see. That's great. We've actually lost a region or two, and I think that I kind of just attach that to normal region, ebb and flow. So, like I said, normal ebb and flow, some growth. I have rolled out grid update about 2 weeks ago that fixed some things, mostly with how prims are counted on regions, and we actually have real functional product codes now for the regions. So, for instance, if you have intro region, it will report prims correctly, things like that. I'm going to have to go back and kind of comb through the regions just to make sure that everything is properly recorded and represented. And I will do that. I'm not in a huge hurry, honestly, because I think people are making do with what we got, and there's some other more pressing issues. So that's been my focus. I did do a pause on processing new ores. I've gotten, I think, most everybody addressed that had put an ore request in. There are some definite issues with the way ores are handled in Halcyon, and I really feel like I need to fix those things before I move forward with more ore loading. The biggest thing that's problematic is that when you restore an ore, it doesn't go beyond one level of objects. So, for instance, it'll address permissions one level down, but if you have, for instance, an object nested inside a vendor or multiple levels of nesting, that's not handled correctly when the ore is restored. And in general, the filtering, it just doesn't work, I think, as it was intended. So I'm going to go back in and fix those things, but that's not my highest priority on the roadmap. The highest priority has been getting a website up and running. I'm happy to say I have a test server that I'm working on now, validating all that functionality. It's looking really nice. I think initially it will really be just account maintenance, being able to change your password, recover a password, register a new account, that sort of thing. And when I do this rollout, which I expect in the next 2 weeks, I will also roll out good currency in the form of the non-fungible tokens. Basically, the Skybucks concept where you can buy these, use them as currency on the grid for people that choose to take them, and you can spend them on grid services and tier. So, for instance, if you wanted to pay your tier with Skybucks, because the money that is used to buy them is paid to us initially, we'll take them as payment for services, but they can't be cashed out. So that's the major downside. The main reason that I'm not also going to do Globits at the same time is that I just need more testing time on that, because it's interacting with an external third-party service, and I want to make sure that all of the accounting is correct and that the transactions are all being handled. Since I'm actually had to port the module, it's not the same as what I couldn't just simply drop in what was an OpenSIM and get it to work. I actually have to do some porting. So that being the case, I consider it effectively untrusted code, and I need to do some testing to really validate that piece before I turn it on, especially because it's dealing with people's money. That will come in a later release, but I didn't want to delay the local currency, so we had something on the grid to work with. So that's coming with the next update. And like I said, with that update, we'll get the website and as a start for the website, because I intend to do other things with it, and the local grid currency, plus a couple of fixes for a few things that are problematic. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the stability of things. I feel like I've got the scaling good. It worked out well. I mean, how many regions I can successfully load. I've been interested to read people's experiences when you're flying around or navigating the grid. That's good to hear. I like the fact that people are able to do the things that we wanted to try and enable. The overall, I think the stability's been quite good, and I'm pleased with the infrastructure I put in. I'm using Windows Server 2019 for the region servers. Windows is required because of Halcyon's code base, and a provider that I trust for the infrastructure. And kind of by way of note, that reliability, I think I feel good about the reliability. Is about a week ago, we actually had a denial of service attack on one of the region servers, one of the primary region servers that people's regions are on. And the provider that I use, OVH, effectively identified the attack and vacuumed up the network packets and basically didn't pass them through, so that they impacted our servers. That plus all the firewall configurations and the rest of the work that's been done on the servers, I think, ends up with a pretty secure environment overall. There's always room for improvement, but I'm pretty happy with the way things are at. So I just wanted to kind of let you know that that's where one of the things that we've tried to emphasize with Skye-Grid from the start is a level of security and trustability of the environment. So we haven't really been down. We haven't had no major outages other than the rollout that I did, and that really wasn't a grid outage. It was just region restarts. So, and I hope to continue that. That's my intent. So, beyond the changes that I talked about and the currency piece, the Globits piece, which I'm testing, my next major development effort will be around ORs and IARs. I'm gonna basically rework all that code and make IARs work at the same time. I want that for a couple of reasons. One is I want to be able to effectively. I'll use Utopia Skye-Grid as an example. I would like to be able to effectively take content from Utopia Skye-Grid in the form of ORs for backing for the contents of a region, and IARs for inventory contents, and restore that on Halcyon and know that the content is restored correctly. So that means that materials have got to work. Handling of physics settings has got to work, and the handling of materials with regard to the land impact calculations has got to work. So there's a little bit of surgery that has to happen in there for the loader code to handle parsing OpenSIM specific fields, and unfortunately that implies parsing multiple versions of those things, because the OR could be coming from a system that has a different physics engine, or that makes it a bit more complex. The other thing I want to do is I really want to be able to handle and nail down translating content from the OR into local IDs, because this nesting problem has been a kind of a major time sink for me with regard to permissions and how that's handled. And I actually think that there might be some code that can go back to OpenSIM related to. I'm keeping a table now, for instance, of user aliases where I know that the following set of IDs represent the same user on other grids. And so I can, rather than the kind of brute force approach that the OpenSIM code takes, where it just simply says, oh, this is the estate owner, make all the content owned by the estate owner, I can actually translate things correctly to local users where they're present, like or would normally work if you were backing up to and restoring to the same grid. So I think those will be nice changes. And finally, once I get the IARs and ORs working to that level and they're reliable, I intend to also port and turn on another service that comes from OpenSIM, and that's basically kind of a nightly backup service. So what it does is it takes a on-grid snapshot nightly of the region contents. I use that on Utopia Skye-Grid now, and I've actually had to in the past restore someone's region, basically do a rollback to a region because somebody requested it, and those ores are how I do that. I do back. We do full backups now of the grid, both the region servers and the grid servers, and those happen nightly as well. But they're really more disaster recovery backups. I could theoretically go in and surgically pull out stuff, but that's more problematic. I think the nightly backup, the snapshot of a region, is a more realistic way to handle rollbacks. I'm going to enable that service at the same time. And while I'm in there doing all this stuff, I'm going to try and do an upgrade to Libre Metaverse, which is one of the libraries that's used, which is that at the root cause of the 26 item bug. And I'd like to fix a few other things that I'm aware of. I've got a workaround in place now for the gray texture issue that everybody has experienced in the past on Halcyon. I know what that is, so I'd like to go back and fix it and turn on Aperture again, which is a caching server that fetches textures and mesh. Right now, all the region code is doing the fetching, which isn't terrible. It's actually how most OpenSims work, but there's a potential for caching and saving some fetches from the asset server if I put it in a separate server. And I haven't been able to do that because that exposes the timing issue that causes the gray texture problem. So we have a workaround now. I'll fix that bug and get that in the near future as well. I'd like to try and get that all around the same time I fix the ores, because there's, as much as I hate to say this, a lot of this stuff is interconnected. And the other major issue that I'm working on is appearance. Many of us have experienced problems with appearance loading. There are some incompatibilities with the way Halcyon handles appearance in the current outfit folder and things like that. I hit some of those things and tried to get some fixes in with the website code, because I have to create an app when I create avatars that you have to set up at least their initial folders and things like that. But there's more work to be done in that area. So there's still work to do to finish the appearance, both selection of appearance. So the website, for instance, on the first version won't let you select an avatar's appearance. I could have just mucked around in the database to get it to work, but my preference is actually to use the appearance code that's in the server to set up appearance correctly, which means I have to fix it. So that's coming in a future update as well, probably after the ore handling is done, because that gets back to loading people's initial regions and backing up things and keeping data safe. So I'd like to prioritize that first. So lots of work to do. I'm very much committed to doing it. I have to say I have been flying around and exploring our world, the world that we're all building together, and I really love it. I love to see the creativity. I think we've done some cool things. The Creators Guild shops, for example, I'm really pleased with those and how they came out. I just think that we're building a nice home, and that's kind of how I look at it. To me, more than anything else, this is my virtual home, and probably I think, to me, the last one I'm going to make, because I'd really like this to have a long life, and I'd like to be able to enjoy it with all of you. So I'm committed to continue to make this better and grow it, and really make it a great experience for everybody. So, but it's fun to see all the creativity and Bensky plotting world domination and Judy's planes and various vehicles and all of the things that everybody's doing. The people that are making content for the grid. I'm just glad you're all here and that we're doing this together, because I'm really pleased and proud of it. So I'm sure I'm forgetting something. I had a list of things I wanted to talk to, and I think I've hit them all. And hopefully, I didn't put anybody to sleep. So I am going to turn this over for questions. As usual, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, raise your hand, and we'll promote you so you can do that.
I think one of the things. Oh, we do have a question. Ah, good question. Tamara asks, will the tokens be around the same price as Globits, so it will be easier to switch so we don't need to change all the vendors when we change between the two? I'll let you answer that, Mike, but good question, Tam.
Yeah, so we've actually been back and forth on this. Right now, Globits run about $2 for 450, around $2 for 400 Globits, and I think that it would be closer to two for 500. If But he also charges fees, and those just get swallowed up in the transaction. You get less Globits for it. If you look at InWorld's currency in the past, and Callie's putting the numbers in. I want to sanity check my numbers because we literally were talking about this right before. I actually don't think we're going to match the Globits price. What we had talked about was staying consistent with what Inworld's traditionally used, which is 500 of the currency for about $1 US. You get double the currency for the same price. So you'd get for that $2, you'd get 1,000 of the tokens, the Skye-Grid bucks. So there, it is different. None of that's finalized yet. So I'm interested in hearing feedback. Although we kind of felt like keeping it similar to, since the large majority of the people that are in the grid now are Inworlds, people that were in Inworlds and were probably used to that. We thought it's similar to what EG had and other grids have had. We thought we would keep it similar to that, which is different than Globits. And I understand the argument about the first kind of pass at this. I actually did take that approach. I said, well, let's keep it the same as Globit so you can convert between the two. They work roughly the same. So let me remind you that the tokens, the way they work, are not cash outable. You can't present them for cash. You can spend them on services and on your tier because you'll essentially be paying us the money to buy them. So, we'll take them as money. When you do that transaction, any PayPal fees that you incur are passed through. So, for instance, you'll pay the money and you'll always get, if for every dollar you spend, you'll always get initially what we're talking about now is 500 Skye-Grid bucks. And then the actual amount that's charged will be the dollar plus whatever additional PayPal fees are incurred for the transaction. And of course, that changes if you buy a small amount of a currency. You're going to spend more in fees compared to what you're spending for actual currency. So, and then at some point it levels off. But those are pass-through fees. So right now we're talking about tracking closer to what SL had and what Inworlds had as a price, which is different than the Globit price. None of this is finalized yet, so I am interested, and we're interested in hearing feedback on this. Yeah, so we are trying to match SL currency rates. Well, no, actually we don't, right? SL currency rates are closer to Globits. As Cal said, that currency fluctuates. So yeah, that's a good point. If that's what people prefer, then then the price would be, if we're matching what SL is doing and what Globits is doing, it's going to be closer to $2 for 500. So about half, the current price. So if you do have thoughts on this, let us know. Please drop us a note and give us your thoughts, because we're going to try and finalize this. The initial thought was that we would make it similar to what Inworlds had because people are familiar with that, but it may be that in this case, because Globits is going to be our external currency, and SL, people are familiar with SL, that tracking that makes more sense.
Clydar, please feel free to raise your hand if you have a question.
Yes, Lola. So Lola's asking, does that mean we will have two currencies of bits and tokens? Yes, you'll be able to make a decision based on initially on the region. So the region can either be all Globits or all Skybucks, and then you decide which things you want to take. The eventual goal would be to be a bit more flexible about it. So, and there's some design discussions and a number of things going on around that. So I've touched on this before. A lot of work is done on OpenSim via collaboration using the OpenSim NGC project that is going on. I still want to continue to collaborate within that effort, and I'd like to bring some of the Halcyon stuff we're doing in there as well. So if we can kind of come up with a set of standards for how to handle currency, and especially be flexible about how we handle currency, I think both the Halcyon code base and the OpenSim code base could benefit. So I'm hoping to do some of that collaboration within the next generation core project. I think it would be nice to be able to be as flexible as going down to the level of a vendor. This object that vends whatever is inside it can pick whether it's doing glow bits or tokens and go from there. So you can have it at that level of flexibility. I'm expecting to do this rollout with the website pieces plus the tokens in the next 2 weeks. Might be as soon as a week, but I'd like to give myself an extra week just because stuff happens.
One of the things both Mike and I are passionate about is testing, especially where it concerns things like money or security. So that's really kind of part of our process on Skye-Grid is, what's created then gets tested and vetted and then deployed. So security is paramount.
So one more thing I wanted to talk about that I'd forgotten. And Cal, do you want to do this, or do you want me to just touch on it?
Yeah, it isn't either one of us. It's fine. I don't mind. I was only going to mention it as an example continent, so people could, if we had role play communities that wanted to come on board, we could
Mhm.
use this as an example for them to understand how they too could be part of the world and yet have their own kind of separate, distinct place too. So, but we
Judy,
do
go
still
ahead.
have questions. So, yes.
Yep. Well, that's an interesting question. So for this next rollout, it's because a number of the features are actually in the grid servers themselves. It's harder to do region level testing, but in the future, we may get to some things that are region specific. In fact, I'm sure we will. Yeah, if people are interested in beta testing at that level, I will probably just when we get to a point where we have a feature that can benefit from that, I'll put a call out and let people decide whether they want to update their region with a beta version of software earlier. Whatever we do along those lines, I'm going to make sure it's safe to do. I don't want to ever impact anybody's data negatively by running a test version. So you can probably assume it's already been pretty well tested if I'm at that point. While we're waiting for any more questions, I'm going to make one. I'm in the process of turning up. We just turned up a fourth region server. This is there's a couple of region orders already that are going to get fulfilled out of this. But one of the things that's going to get put on the server is we have an adult hub now that I brought over from our Utopia Skye-Grid, and we're going to build kind of a little separate continent for adult stuff. So this is the intention here is that if you want to be on a continent that is connected, it'll have waterways as well, and eventually I may kind of run a set of waterways up to connect the two continents. So there's a little strip to be able to navigate between the two. But the idea being that for any adult related activities where somebody really wants the privacy, and to clearly identify the activities are adult activities, that's a place where they could potentially put a region. Where we're going to put our adult hub and a few other things that we brought over there, and I have a region order actually for that is going to kick this thing off. I'm not going to go into mentioning the project because the person who's doing it can do that. But basically, the idea being that we'll have an area that you can cite your region with other people that are like-minded. This is something I feel pretty strongly about, especially the adult related community. Callie and I have always cultivated kind of that kind of activity in Utopia Sky, and I want to bring it to Skye-Grid as well. If this is going to be our home, we need to have a place to do the kinds of things that we do. So I think that's a cool thing about this is that we can build something like that out. So if you're interested, let us know, and then we'll get that. I'll get that turned up. It'll be sited north of the main continent, and eventually, like I said, I may connect the two. Other reason I wanted to mention that is I was actually approached recently by a person who wanted. They basically told me they wanted to do a continent, and they were going to focus on role play, and which I think is great. I would love to see a role play community come in and take advantage of the grid. We were talking about what they needed, and it would have pretty much filled up a server, which is great, also great. But the thing that kind of stopped it was the comment I got was that, well, they needed an Anshi Chung kind of deal, and I asked them what they meant by that, and that meant at cost, at my cost. So that we wouldn't make money on the region. And the idea being that it's just goodwill, and you should, and having more residents is good for the grid. So I wanted to say something about that, because I think you can make a case that in SL, first of all, I don't think Second Life ever sells regions at their cost to anybody, including the big renters. But they also have other revenue sources, like you pay for uploads and things like that. So having more people on the grid still makes them money. In our case, the primary income for Skye-Grid that's paying for all the servers that we're using and everything is region rentals. So I'm very interested in working with people who want to, especially if you want to do a role play focused continent or something like that. I would love to see that kind of activity happen. We've already got a discount structure that I think reflects. Yeah, they decided that they didn't want to proceed with the project. I'm open to talking to people about that kind of thing. I think we've already got a fairly hefty discount structure when you take multiple regions, a larger number of regions. We did that originally so somebody who wanted to build out rentals could do so. And I'm open to, if there's other things that a community needs to be successful in the grid, we can certainly talk about it. The adult community that we're going to build is a good example of that. Like I said, that's going to be hopefully a nice place for people to get together who are in the lifestyle, or that you might want to do like a nude beach or whatever you want to do. I mean, the point is that it's a place for people to come together that want a kind of a experience in their virtual life, and they share those things together. So I'm open to other things like that, but I have to be able to do it within the pricing structure. If there's no other well, I'm going to turn it over whatever additional questions remain at the end.
Sorry about that. I think I lost you for that last half sentence. Were you saying you were turning it over to me?
Yeah, go ahead if you have
Oh, okay.
anything you
Okay,
wanted to add.
yeah. I do. I have a couple of topics to discuss. Um, First, I want to thank everybody for all of their contributions to the winter party and for showing up. It was a really great turnout. We had the two parties, and I think that worked really well to kind of cover both time zones, and it was super fun. So I'm really, really pleased with everybody. And, all the freebies you guys are creating and giving are amazing. And, we look forward to commerce being able to happen too. But it's a wonderful thing to see how everybody's kind of coming together and creating and adding to the community as well in the interim. So I consider that winter party a success, and it was a great holiday thing for our first go. I do also want to encourage others to, start working on potential clubs or events or things like that. So don't shy away from it just because we don't have 100,000 people or whatever. Things will start out small and they'll grow, and I'm happy to lend efforts to that too. I can DJ or help out or whatever. So I just want you to know that that's something that we look forward to as well. I know we've got a few entertainers on the grid as well. So, I'd be happy to see them do those things. But the adult content in particular, I would love to see. That's going to be, an adult continent with everything that Mike said, but also educational too, in a lot of ways. It'll be a good example for other types of folks that want communities. Another good example would be like a holistic continent, things with educational tools for meditation and things like that. And so that may or may not be connected to the mainland, but it's a place where people know they can go for, a specific thing, meditation or healing or whatever. I mean, I'm not trying really to put a pun on this, but the sky is literally the limit. I mean, anything that you thought you could do but were limited before by poor grid management, You may not find is the case here, or at least I hope, you don't find that. So, really feel free to kind of dream. It's okay. One of the big things I wanted to kind of bring up is an incentive program. So times are tough, you know what I mean? And I know that our tier is more expensive by its very nature being in Halcyon and with all the licensing that it has to be, I mean, I know OpenSim, I think there's some places you can get a region for as low as $5, and we just can't do that. One of the things that I want to do is support grid growth, right? I mean, in order to keep this place going and add more to it, we need people to come to it. And right now, things are still in this kind of infancy stage. I mean, our website doesn't even allow for avatar creation just yet. It will, but even then, you can't, choose your avatar. You're going to come in as an orange cloud until some things are fixed. But that doesn't mean that we can't use word of mouth as a means to kind of get people to come in and kick the tires and see what they think. The loss of IW created a lot of challenges for people, a lot of trust issues for people. And then the subsequent, you know, formation and, well, destruction of other grids, both OpenSim and Halcyon, further widened that. And so what we're trying to, let people see here is that not only is it a place that, is technologically sound, but is also secure, um, and has longevity. There are very few grids out there that I would say the same thing about, and they're all in different places. Discovery is one of them. The longevity is there. Mobius, grid, same thing. But those are open sim grids. And in the Halcyon place, I don't know, others may disagree, but I think this is kind of where it's at. With respect to that, I wanted to try and also kind of work some way where we could do some grid growth into a way that we might be able to offer some kind of an incentive that might help our residents, maybe take a little bit off from time to time based on what happens. So what we've created is called the Community Builder Incentive Plan. And I'm going to read I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read just the crux of the idea of it for you. And then I'll post it in our announcements channel and I will publish it so it will hit all servers that follow that channel. And then I will pin it so it will always be available. So I'm certain there will be questions around this, if not now, later. But for now, let me just get you the idea of it. Word of mouth is the best representation or advertising for any business. We believe this grid to be a fantastic one, largely because of all of you that bring your passion and efforts to the table. Additionally, we believe this because as a community of people, we are actively choosing to work together towards a common goal, which is a stable home for our dreams. We also realize that, especially after the holidays and just in general, times are pretty hard. So we wanted to see if we couldn't provide both a benefit to the grid with growth and a little bit of financial relief for our residents. And so this plan was born. For every person you refer to the grid, as a general overview, who buys a region and pays for their region for 3 months, you are able to get a 25% discount applied to your tier up to a maximum of $15 USD for 1 month after their third payment is received. So, for example, if you refer someone to the grid and that person comes in, joins, and buys land, when they do their support ticket, they will reference you by name as the person who referred them to the grid. And this ticket becomes the timer for their region purchase, if you will. Once they've gotten their region up and paid their tier for 3 months, you will then get a 25% discount applied to your current tier up to a maximum of $15. Now, I know there's going to be some questions about it, but the basic idea is word of mouth. That and salesmanship, if you will. A lot of you folks are wonderful creators, absolutely brilliant artists, and well-connected people in your own right. So you can leverage some of those things and talk about this place that you call home now. And in doing so, really the big points that you want to tell people are, hey, come check it out. If you like it and you decide to purchase a region, just make sure you mention that you were referred by me in your ticket. And that's really what you need to do. I mean, that's the biggest part of this. Your biggest, thing to remember to tell them is put my name on your ticket because that's the way that we the mechanism we can use to document the purchase and the subsequent discount for you. So this is effective immediately and will remain in effect until July 4th of this year. So it's a 7-month incentive plan that even as of a purchase on July 4th by midnight in grid time, somebody can still receive the discount. I would like to post this today, and I would like to see if you have questions or concerns about it, whether it be now or another time, and I will happily answer them. Mike can answer them too, and let's just see what we can do in growing the community. That was my big spiel for the day. Mike, back to you.
Sounds good. All right, I think we're mostly done with the talking. I'm open. We're still open for questions. If you have any, go ahead and raise your hand, and the moderator will get you set up so you can ask either in voice or typing. I would like to remind people, if you have specific thoughts you haven't already shared about the currency, let me know. Let Callie or I know. We're interested in feedback on that. Obviously, there are trade-offs. Probably two distinct choices that we could use to set the price. And I've heard that at least there's some interest in blocking the price more closely to SL and the Globits thing. So we'll look at that as a group. But if you have feedback, I'd like to hear it. And I think Callie had one more comment before we wrap up. But again, if there's any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll get you so you can ask.
Yeah, it was more just a re-asking if there's anyone that has any interest in being part of our tourism bureau, which is our take on mentors. I'd like to kind of get people involved now before we, have a need so that, we can kind of go through what's needed because it will include a little bit of Discord work as well, depending on interest. So if you are interested in being part of the Tourism Bureau in any way, don't hesitate to reach out to me as I'm kind of spearheading that project for the grid. That was it.
Beans typing. So thank you everybody also for taking the time for these meetings. I really appreciate it. Like I said, to me, the best thing about this whole overall endeavor is that we're all building a community and a home for ourselves. My virtual life means a great deal to me. I know Callie feels the same way, and this is our home now. So that's important.
I don't see any other questions. It's not to say if you don't think of a question later that you can't ask it, but that's just to say right now it looks like we're all set. There will be a recording of this. Thank you, Bensky, and we'll post that as soon as it's available in the announcements channel.
All right. Well, we'll call this done then. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody,
Yes.
or the rest of your weekend.